Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm Perry, and your host, and I am so excited to have sitting down with me two very esteemed guests. They looked like they weren't so sure about that. Mark and Sherri Carter from the Old Carter Whiskey Company. Welcome onto the show, guys. I'm so happy to have you all here.
Perry, it's my pleasure and my wife's pleasure to be here. You know, I'm Mark Carter. I think I have the lower voice, but we'll see in a minute. So,
thank you, Perry, for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for being here. So, the way that this kind of came about, well, first and foremost, Mark sent me a friend request on Facebook the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the Old Carter whiskey guy.
And he's very friendly.
And it just so happened that, and I had asked, do you guys want to come on the show sometime soon? And I go, when are you going to be in Lexington next?
and it just so happened that we were coming out.
It was 2 days
in 2
after
days.
we
Exactly.
communicated, which was just extremely serendipitous. So no better time, no better way for that to happen. We're sitting in the Old Carter Whiskey tasting room in Justin's House of Bourbon currently, which you guys had a huge hand in well, not just a huge hand, but this was your baby, basically, putting all of this together.
Yeah, it was actually we met the Justins a couple of years back. In fact, we met them at a Bourbon Mafia we had the inauguration of the first brand that we had, and they were there, and we hit it off. And we told them if they ever got to California to come see us in the wine country. And sure enough, a few years later, we get a kind of a call that they're coming down the hill and they're going to be in Napa Valley. And Sherri goes, "Who are these guys?"
That's not entirely true.
Close, but Sloan really liked Sherri right off, and JT, and we got along really great. And their actual van, they were bringing back some bourbon and from the West Coast and dropping some off, and it broke down, and they were there for 3 weeks in Napa Valley, and we got to be family, basically.
Well, that's fantastic. So when I'm sure that, when Justin's was opening, they said, what do you guys want to do here? Right? And this was just kind of your vision?
Well, we were thinking about having a clubhouse for, maybe doing some memberships and ambassadorships for Old Carter. And we might need a nice little house that we could have where people would come and, and we could entertain. And they said, well, we're looking for a commercial building to put this little kind of shop in with, these old dusty bottles. Maybe we can do something together. And so we shifted gears and started looking for a commercial building. And in one day, we found this building, and we put an offer in on it, and we bought the building.
And it's a beautiful old building. And if you guys have never been down to Justin's House of Bourbon, I highly encourage you to do so. Of course, located in Lexington, Kentucky, over on Jefferson Street. And, definitely stop by. It's a great time. But anyway, we're not necessarily here to talk about Justin's House of Bourbon. We're here to talk about the Old Carter Whiskey Company. And let's kind of start from the very beginning. So let's talk first and foremost about how you all got into whiskey. How did you guys get into drinking bourbon?
Sherri got me into bourbon, actually, even though my
Really?
grandmother on my side, my dad's side, is from Somerset, Kentucky. So I think it's in our DNA, actually.
Okay.
The whiskey part. But I didn't drink a lot of whiskey. I was drinking a lot of wine.
Yeah.
And
I was a Manhattan drinker when Mark met me.
Maker's Mark, because it had my name in it, and she was always thinking of me.
It's about, 17, 18 years ago?
That is correct.
Yes.
So,
It's all my fault.
Yes.
In the best way, right?
She's a bad influence on me. I was really very, very sweet,
Uh-huh.
My wife is the same way, so look, don't worry.
So I think that was the beginning about 20 years ago or 18 years ago when we started doing Manhattans. And then we worked our way through and got to know people. And I was lucky enough to have a winery in Napa Valley, and I was making wine for other people, we do custom crush because we have a very small brand called Carter Cellars, makes about 2,000 cases. But over the years, we were able to buy a winery, and the winery can make 25,000 cases. So we make about 23,000 cases for other people at our winery. And at the beginning, when we bought the winery, we were looking for custom crush clients because without that, we were losing quite a bit of money every month. And so we wanted to stop that. And so I went out and talked to all my friends that had inns and taverns and said, we could make some wine for you. And one of them just so happened to be here in Kentucky and had an inn they've had for 100 years. And I've known Chuck Dedman and his son Dixon, and Dixon wanted me to make some wine for his tavern, a little red wine, a little white wine. And I said, well, we could do that, but your dad told me a story a long time ago that you guys used to make bourbon, and we should do that instead. I think bring your brand back. And so that night down in Austin, Texas, we decided to hatch the plan to start making bourbon again, and we just fell in love with it. We fell in love with Kentucky and all the people here, and so we have now so many friends here, and Sherri can tell you a little bit more. That when that brand sold, we basically weren't done. We didn't want to be done, and so Sherri ends up, saying, I want to continue. I said, well, we can do it again. We can start our own brand. We'll be Old Carter.
Because I'm old and you're Carter.
Yeah.
As the designer of the package and being very involved, of course, in what's inside the package, you really feel like it's a baby, it's a child.
Absolutely.
So we're very, very attached to all of our children here, and yes, so I did all the package design and label design. The horse on our label is actually the original woodcut is here in the room with us.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a woodcut that I created about 20 years ago, and it happens to be the first piece of artwork that Mr. Carter purchased from me while I think he was stalking me outside my art studio.
Maybe. Maybe.
You guys clearly have that story down to a T, by the way, because it sounds like you've rehearsed it a couple times.
We live it every day, Perry. It's still happening.
So are you a graphic designer and artist by trade then?
Yes. Yeah.
So
I
am
do
I.
actually. Cool.
Yeah.
The paintings are mine in the
Okay,
room. And,
great.
yes.
We need to take some. I'll post some pictures as well on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter of the artwork that's in here too, so people can see what it is actually that we're talking about. But yeah, I'm also a graphic designer, so that's
Yeah.
why it kind of piqued my interest.
As a designer, Mark was my client for a while.
Oh, okay.
I was really a great client too. I never changed my mind. It was
Yeah.
Not even once.
My contract.
Wow. Okay.
My contract grew exponentially as he was my client. I had to keep
I
adding.
taught her a lot.
Yeah. Change orders became very expensive.
So did you do the design work for the owl packaging too? Then
I did.
And all of the labels
Wow.
for the winery too.
Okay.
She's done the Carter Cellars, the Envy wine, the ancillary wine. So we keep her pretty busy.
yeah, no
Label
kidding.
designs and all
Well,
the artwork.
I have to ask then, since we're on the topic of it, inspiration wise, because Kentucky Owl, as we were saying, was a revived brand. What were you looking to for inspiration when you were creating that package design?
Well,
Kentucky Owl?
actually, Dixon had a beautiful, and still has a beautiful print of the original label.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always our goal to maintain the very cool integrity of that original label, but bring it into a more contemporary feel. And it was very basic. Obviously, the techniques and printing processes at that time were very simple, but gorgeous. And we loved the elements that were on the label.
Absolutely.
So we just wanted to enhance it and kind of bring it to today's times.
I gotta say, I've always been such a fan of the design work of not just Kentucky Owl, but the old Carter labels too. So being able to sit down with you is actually really, really cool for me.
Thank you.
And being
Thank
a
you.
design nerd as well, I mean, it's just really nice.
I should add, actually, then that a big inspiration for the old Carter label, we really wanted to pay tribute to Mark's family from Somerset,
Mm-hmm.
and really have something on the label that had to do with a sense of working the land. And so and as a designer, you go through
Yeah.
several, versions of things. So I started out and
Trust me,
I
I
was
know.
doing all
Yeah.
these renditions of, I was trying to do a horse with a plow with a guy behind it, but I wanted to make it look like an etching. So I was running it through all these filters
right.
and trying to come up with something that was very vintage looking, but conveyed what the message we were trying to get across. Everything just looked really contrived and really forced.
Sure.
And then we kind of remembered that I had this series, this woodcut series. There are 4 or 5 more in the series, all workhorses. I grew up in northeastern Ohio, and workhorses
Okay.
were a big part of my landscape,
Right.
so to speak, growing up. And so we remembered this woodcut and dropped it into the design, and it actually had the full original background that you can see
Right.
on the wall. And even with the full background and with the typeface, it was like, yes.
That's it.
So my hair just stood up. And you know
I know
how that
exactly.
goes. You know
I know
how that
exactly
goes.
what you're talking about.
So so cleaned it up, and then that horse to me, just besides the other layers that it means between Mark and myself, it symbols, it's such a symbol of that. Like
Absolutely.
strength, power, earthiness, and kind of authenticity.
Yeah, on the back, we even give a little tribute to Somerset, where my grandmother and their family were from, and they were farmers, and they used for wheat, corn, rye, and they used to use a horse, like that,
Right.
so to till the land. So.
Did you spend much time in Somerset?
No, not much. We've been down there a few times, doing a lot of, kind of looking back at the history and seeing, what they did, where they lived at. And
They left Somerset after Prohibition because they were chasing oil.
yeah, there was not many jobs, after Prohibition for the wheat, corn, rye. So at that exact same time, there was a big oil rush out to California, and they went to Bakersfield, and that's where my father was born. And then I was born up in Humboldt County, believe it or not.
Well, we have all 5 of the offerings
Yep.
of Old Carter whiskey on the table. So I say let's
We'd love to
Let's
have you
taste
try these
something.
and see what you think.
absolutely, yeah. So I'll let you lead the tasting. Where should we begin then?
I think the bourbon is always the best one to start
Sure.
with. It's the softest to speak of.
Okay. Well, the color on it is magnificent. It's such a deep amber color to it.
This was really fun putting together. We had 30 some attempts and blends to put this together. It is 13 different barrels.
Wow.
And about 20 gallons roughly from each of the barrels.
Mm-hmm. What's the proof on it, by the way? I meant
It's
to ask.
108.9.
The nose is a lot softer than I would anticipate for a bourbon that high proof.
And one of the things we do is everything we've ever made has always been barrel proof, never cut, never filtered also.
That is delicious.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It has a real rich sweetness to it as well, which you don't
Thank
find
you.
on a whole lot of bourbons, especially at that high of proof. But my goodness, that is absolutely delicious.
Thank you, Perry. That's what we're always looking for. We're always looking for, that richness, that sweetness,
Yeah.
that depth. And that's what we're chasing all the time.
So, as primarily wine drinkers, correct me if I'm wrong in that. Are you primarily a wine drinker?
I'm not.
Well, yes. Okay.
I like both. I do. I love big red wines.
Right.
Big, rich red wines. Cabernet is what
Yeah.
we specialize in. And
I do.
You
I
and
do
Trey
love
Zoller. So, how has being a wine drinker influenced the way that you have approached the craft behind your whiskey? Then,
That's a great question.
You know, being also a winemaker in Napa Valley,
And maker too, yeah.
and we've been fortunate enough. We have great vineyards, and it really starts with great grapes and great vineyards to make great wine. And we've been doing it for over 20 years now in Napa Valley, making wines. And one of the vineyards we have is this vineyard called Toklon, which has more 100 points than any vineyard in the world. And we got on there, and since we've been making the wines from there, these powerful wines, we also learned all about barrels. Now we use French barrels, for great Cabernet in Napa Valley, but we use different levels of toast, not char, but toast. But the barrel has so much influence too, and the wood has so much influence on the wine that we really wanted to bring that out when we started making the bourbon, rye, and whiskeys. How important the wood is with that also. So, and in blending, we blend a lot of the red wines to make our greatest wines. And so we found out that if you have some great parts, to blend those parts, you can even make a greater, either bourbon or wine or
Sure.
rye or whiskey.
And I'd like to add, I think one thing that's important about Carter Cellars wines is that they are vineyard designate wines. So even though they're all Napa Valley Cabernets, they're coming from different sites in the valley, and they really do show the characters of those places. So I think over the years, you develop a kind of a sensory library of smells and textures
Sure.
that are attached to those different sites. And when a winemaker can make wine that truly illustrates the place that grape was grown, to me, that's the highest form of the art of winemaking, if they can keep those expressions unique. So I feel like we came to, the whiskey world with a clear sense of having things that are unique and how wonderful that can be.
Yeah.
Making something that's truly like making a painting.
Right.
For us, also, every year in winemaking is a different year. It's all about
Of
the
course.
weather
Of
and
course.
Mother Nature, and so each year is totally different, which we love. You try to make the best from what the vintage gives you, and were so impressed by what that was. We wanted to do the same thing with our bourbons, rye, whiskeys. That each one is unique. We did not ever want to make the exact same bourbon each year. We wanted to make something unique that was, that really kind of, spoke to us. We said, well, we're never going to be huge. We want to make individual flavors that we love.
Yeah. Talk about too the blending process, because you touched on it a little bit, but you said this is a blend of 13 barrels.
That is correct. Yep.
What went into selecting those barrels? Was it
A lot of tasting.
sure? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a combination of tasting them individually and blend by blend, or what was just expand a little bit on that too?
Well, I'll let Sherri do a little bit of that too, because we do it together. We are really, and we have our certain strengths, which I think together makes for a great, flavor profile and aromatic profile. So go ahead.
So we always start by tasting through the individual barrels, of course.
Right.
And
Every
then,
barrel. Yeah.
Then it literally just becomes a game of let's try this combination, this combination, this combination, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you know what each barrel feels and tastes like by itself, and then it's like cooking. You're
Yeah.
looking for notes. Like, what note does this? If we know this barrel has these qualities, and we're looking for that, so let's try adding this. Let's add some of this, and then let's add this ratio of it. I mean, it's very painstaking and it's
Absolutely.
very intense. And sometimes it comes together quickly, and sometimes it takes longer.
So it's not just taking each individual barrel, dumping them all together, and saying, "There you go." You're
Absolutely
picking and
not.
choose. So do you even get down to say maybe a 1-to-2 ratio of how much you pull from a barrel?
It's all
or
different.
Yeah.
They're all different.
Yeah. So that must be even more exhausting then.
It's intense. Let's just put it this way: I'm very happy when it's in the bottle.
I I would imagine so.
It's like the baby's in bed now.
I'm still loving on the bourbon, by the way.
Thank
I've got a
you.
little bit left of it, but
Thank you. And I think you're going to see with the two ryes that we will pour. Mark was talking about our individual preferences, and I'm always looking for aromatics and complexity and layers. And Mark loves.
I like power. I like, finish. I like long finishes, I like that richness, deepness,
We
darkness,
both and
caramel.
We
you know,
both
those-
meet in the realm of definitely we want that wonderful creamy viscosity.
Absolutely.
And that mouthfeel.
and it has it.
That's the texture that we're always striving for.
One of the things that I didn't point out too, and I thought as I was thinking about this, I found it interesting that this is a product coming from winemakers as well. The legs on the glass as well were so long, and it just so slowly decaying.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
We,
yeah.
we love, that thickness, that mouthfeel, that roundness is
Yeah.
always, the same way in a wine. If, you can handle a bigger wine. Some of ours are between 15 and 16 alcohol levels, which a lot of people think are pretty big for wine. But if they have all the stuffing in the wine, that balance, the flavor, the extraction, you don't taste just alcohol. And the same thing we feel with actually high proof, bourbons, ryes, and
And
whiskeys.
it's something you have to work at. They
Oh,
don't
of
just
course.
roll out like that.
So all of them have quite a bit of age on them. Everything we do too with the
I should
spirits.
add, yeah, this bourbon is a combination of 9 and 11-year-old barrels.
Okay, there you go.
Mostly 11-year-old, but it does not have an age statement on it.
I was curious as to what the age
Because
was.
some of that was 9, and I don't feel right putting an age statement really at this point anything under 10. So that
Okay.
And with that 9, with the barrels that were 9, it would have to be called 9.
Well, we'll get more to talking about age statements too as we work our way up through the
Cool.
line. But as we're doing that, the next pour is the rye, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And so this will be the first rye that we had produced, which is batch 1.
Mm-hmm.
We're making an old Carter suicide over here on the
I was
side.
going to say, I thought that's what was going on.
A new
so-
blend.
yeah.
It's delicious.
Right off the bat, I mean, you can immediately, of course, tell the difference between what we just had, which was the bourbon, and now this first batch of rye. I mean, immediately, of course, you can tell the distinction just in, the mash bills and everything, because, rye has that spicier profile. It has more of those kind of clove and mint notes to it as well. But I've also noticed recently that I've been on a bit of a rye kick. So this has, I would say, on the nose, everything that I am looking for in a rye in terms of profile.
And it is a 95% rye.
Yes.
As is batch 2.
Fantastic.
So these two batches actually they share everything except for the blend. Same mash bill, same age.
That's why this should be really fun to compare
Absolutely.
the two.
Absolutely.
Would you like to hear the story of the two batches?
I would love to hear the story of the two batches, Sherry.
It's a good one. So we were doing the blend for the rye, and Mark and I came up with two blends that we both enjoyed greatly. One of them I liked.
And
very
one I
much,
liked.
And one Mark liked very much. And we just couldn't decide which one to settle on.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to take it to the popular vote. And so we started gathering our friends around and doing some blind tastings.
Yeah.
Which one do you like better? Well, much to our dismay, there was no help out there.
It was a 50-50 split.
I was expecting that. I was fully expecting
It was a
that.
darn 50-50 split. So it was very unhelpful. And our final panel actually happened to be the Justins.
Ah,
And
there you go.
it was very cute. And Justin Thompson,
He liked one,
he was tasting them.
and Justin Sloan liked the other one.
Of course he
Right.
did.
So Justin
Still,
Thompson
still no help, but Justin Thompson,
says to Mark,
you want the good news or the bad news? I said, well, I want the good news. He said, well, they're both great. why don't you just put both of them out? We
He
hadn't
said-
thought about
He
that.
said the good news is there is no bad news.
There you go.
They're both good. So he said, yeah, do them both. And so we said, great idea. So off they went to be bottled, and they were put in 2 tanks, ready to go. And unbeknownst to us, which one was batch 1 or batch 2, which one was mine or which one was Mark's. So now this is our favorite party game. Which rye do you like better?
So can you tell now though?
Oh,
Because which is which?
Yes, you'll have
Yeah,
batch
you'll,
2
you'll,
next.
you'll be able to tell.
Okay.
too.
So
All
we'll,
right.
we'll just let you enjoy both of them.
Well, I'm certainly enjoying batch 1. It is incredibly full-bodied, and there is something really. I'm trying to pick out exactly what it is, but there's something really kind of almost baked goods to it on the middle of the palate as it kind of lingers towards the finish that I find really enjoyable. I'm big on, so I always kind of say Elijah Craig is what I imagine bourbon should taste like. It has always kind of been my benchmark for what bourbon should taste like. And part of that flavor profile too is that baked goods note that I pick up in there. So when I find that in other places, I'm always pleasantly surprised. And here I am with this, finding that baked goods note, and I'm pleasantly surprised by it. So
Good.
this is, y'all are 2 for 2 so far.
Good. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. So let's talk a little bit too about your experience with Kentucky Owl and how that helped you to, understand what went into creating what I think Dixon's described Kentucky Owl as being a super premium brand, right? Would you identify Old Carter as a super premium brand?
Yes,
Okay.
same spot.
So what kind of lessons did you learn in reviving Kentucky Owl with Dixon that went into you building the Old Carter brand as well?
Go ahead, honey.
Well, I don't know.
Loaded
I
questions
guess
on
you
that.
would call them lessons, but I think it was just such a wonderful process, and it was extremely creative. And I think all of us were, finding our way. We all knew what we liked, and we all had our share of spirits. So I think we had a good, working library and a collective palette that we could draw from. Certainly, Dixon has a vast experience of years and years of whiskey tastings in his
Yeah.
establishment.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a really fun collaboration, and we certainly, I think it was just, we always just really looked at it like a really fun project.
Sure.
I mean, we didn't have an agenda, we didn't have a plan at all. we just wanted to make really delicious bourbon.
And I think that's the best way to approach it too. Is that bourbon can be so fickle, whiskey can be so fickle. So if you go into that process with an open mind, you're bound to not be disappointed.
We didn't know how much we were going to do a year. We didn't know what the blend was going to be.
Right.
We had no agenda, literally.
We just wanted to make great bourbon, and that was the whole thing. Just like making great wine. If you're going to do something, I was taught anyway that if you're going to do something, do it right. That's what my father told me, and do it the best you can, and then you don't ever have to say, really, I'm sorry, that I've done what I'm, best I could, and I love what we do, and I hope you enjoy it.
No regrets. No,
No
I
regrets.
wish that I had done this, that, and the other.
No.
That's,
And something that's interesting, actually, and I hadn't even thought of this until now, is that we had put up some rye, but we had not even started working with it. It wasn't ready. And so for us to pick up, to start this brand by launching a rye first was really fun for us
Yeah.
because this was new territory. And, so blending those first 2 batches was extremely exciting for the 2 of us.
well, especially a 95% rye.
Yes.
Because there aren't a whole lot of those on the market.
No.
Yeah, a lot of people think that's going to be just huge spice and bomb.
And it's really not.
It's not.
It's really, it's always surprised me. And, I have friends who have said, well, we haven't gotten to the 95% or the 100% rise yet because, we're not sure if we're ready for it. But I mean, if you're listening to this and you have never tried that high of a rye mash bill, I would highly encourage you to do so because it's such a pleasant and different experience from other rye whiskeys, even high rye bourbons. I mean, it just kind of pales in comparison to the experience that you get with a 95% or 100% rye whiskey.
This might be a good time to point out as well. Mark and I believe in barrel strength spirits.
Yeah.
So we never do any cutting. There's no proofing down of the spirits. And I think that
From the very beginning, our first distill that we had, we said, well, we should give it to people how they, we like it, and we want the full strength. You can do anything you want after you buy it. You can put the cube of ice in it. You can put water in it. You could, put Coca-Cola in it. You can do anything you like. But this is how we liked it, and think, you can. It's a great starting point with, barrel strength.
and I think that is what you're maybe getting at with this rye.
So we're now moving on to batch 2 of the rye. Which one? So Mark, was this your blend that you?
Oh, I don't know. You'll have to.
All
taste
right,
these
all
two
right,
and
all right.
see what you think. This is 113. The other, the first batch was a 112.2. So very close.
Very little difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is literally just a different combination of barrels.
This one has more rye characteristics to it, but also has more of those traditional like vanilla and caramel flavors. Interesting. That is really good. That just kind of, You know what's funny is I think I had mentally prepared myself for the two of them to be similar enough to where I was like, oh, it's good on them for consistency.
Two different
Was not
palates.
expecting the absolutely. Is this yours, Mark?
This one's mine.
Yeah.
I'm 2. She's 1. And it's a 50-50 split every time. But we really get a lot of joy out of who's ahead if we go out and do a tasting. And there's 6 people. I get 4, and she gets 2. I'm ahead, but then I'll go to the next one, and she'll get 4, and I'll get 2, And then she's all smiles.
So let's talk too for a second because last night you guys did a tasting at Justin's House of Bourbon.
Yes.
How do you all prefer to do tasting experiences with your customers?
Well, that's a great question because this is the first week that we've actually had the luxury of going out and visiting some folks, and the luxury of having the whole lineup. So we had the whole Carter family this week. Last night we only poured the 12-year-old American whiskey, but earlier this week we were down in Bowling Green, and we spent some time with
Hickory
Mr.
and Oak.
Cody down at Hickory and Oak.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful. He gathered a great group of folks together down there, and we actually poured through everything at the event. And
So it varies.
we started just like we're doing now.
Yeah.
So we did, and there were 30 people there. I don't know how often we're going to get to do that, but we had all the bottles with us this week, and he had reached out, and so we thought it was important to go down there and say hello.
We thought there'd be maybe a couple people there.
I thought we were going to have a little quiet dinner.
And the restaurant was jammed, and I didn't know they were there for us.
They weren't there for us.
What a
They were
pleasant
there for the
surprise.
whiskey.
Yeah.
Fair. That's fair. That's fair.
But it was wonderful. It was a great
Food
time.
was great. The people were great down there.
Yeah.
We just loved, and we'd love to go back anytime to Bowling Green, and we'd like to do some more of those tastings around. For the last 10 years, we've only been going between Lexington, Louisville, and Bardstown, and this was a chance finally to go out and see some of the friends and people that have actually supported us.
Yeah.
And it really is nice. I can't stress that enough, to have all of them to taste people through the lineup. Because throughout the last year, as we were launching the different, as we were doing the different releases, of course, we only had with us what we were currently releasing.
Right.
So
Right.
it's been nice to take a breath in this quiet time of the year and be able to go and show the kind of the full range.
Right. What's your all's relationship like with your customers, with your yeah, with your customer base? I mean, have you guys been pretty interactive with them? Have they responded well to the brand and everything?
Yeah, and Sherry's really good at responding to everybody. Anybody that has a glass of whiskey or bourbon in their name, I become friends with. I did this same thing with wine. Anybody had a wine glass, I just thought that must be my friend. But Sherry will actually do a lot of
He's
corresponding.
very non-discretionary. Like I said, he's very friendly. But
Welcome to
yes.
Kentucky.
Yes, it's been. You know what? That's a great question. It's been awesome to be able to connect with people
Yeah.
through social media, and I'm very open and welcome to people reaching out, and I'll answer whatever questions I can. The one question folks ask me a lot is, where can I get it? And unfortunately, that's the one question that's the most difficult to answer because I don't know, and I can't sell it directly.
Right.
And
We give
so
it all to the
that's-
distributor,
Yeah.
and then they put it where they think would do the best good for the brand.
I mean, I've had friends who have said, "Oh, I really loved Rye Batch 1. Can you get me a Rye Batch 2?" And I was like, "I'll try." But
Yeah, we don't even have any really. We've kept a few bottles for
Our library.
our library to check back on, and nice to go visit them again. So we have a place where we come from. But
I mean, every batch is labeled, and I do all the hand numbering and handwriting on the labels, so you can see clearly how many bottles are in each batch.
right.
So this is 1,289 bottles in this batch 2. Batch 1 was 1,269. The bourbon was 1,567.
That's not a lot.
That's not a lot. I know.
Ultra limited, super premium. I mean, that
and
is
it's all in Kentucky. We don't have it anywhere else.
yeah.
This is Kentucky only, and we loved being right here. That's why we came back to do this.
So let's move on to now the 12 and the 27 year,
Yeah.
which you all announced last year was coming out, and now it's here. And I think I might have had the 12 year before, actually here at Justin's.
Only been out since December.
Then maybe not. I can't remember. By the way, I want to point out Sherri has moved on from letting Mark pour her glass to pouring her own.
Yeah, she doesn't like my pours. I don't think.
I do
Maybe
like
a
your-
little heavy pour.
I do like your pours, but we got a day ahead of us here.
I call him, or I don't call him. I am a little bit heavy-handed as well, and my friends have now coined it the Perry pour.
The Perry pour. Yes, Mark's known around our house as Mark Bottomless Pour Carter. My girlfriends just love him.
I just want to make people happy.
I do the same thing. It's worth if it's worth pouring, it's
That's
worth
right.
sharing.
That's
And
right.
you
The
know,
champagne glasses are always full. I love you.
Thank you, honey.
I love you a lot.
I love you too.
so this is a whiskey. This is not a bourbon or a rye.
That is correct.
right.
Let's talk a little bit too about the craft that went into this one.
This was much easier actually than some of them. This only took like eight tries.
Actually, it was because it only took 8 attempts. We second guessed it like crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have too.
And it
I
was
totally
like, this can't
understand
be,
that.
we can't be this happy with this yet.
Right.
Right? And this was what we did after the bourbon, which was the 31 attempts and 13 barrels. And
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is. Have you seen what the proof is?
No.
Okay, good.
So
Okay.
you're tasting it, and now you have a good palate, and you
Well,
should
thank
tell
you.
us what
All right,
you think
all right,
they,
here we go.
the proof is on.
Based on the nose, it doesn't seem like it's a extremely high proof, but I haven't tasted it yet. So before I get to the proof, the mouthfeel is unbelievable. It is incredibly oily and just coats all over the tongue. I feel like you're playing me on this one, but I'm gonna shoot for it. I'm gonna say it's in the 115 to 120 range,
Well, that's a good guess,
but it's wrong.
it's
No, it's a good guess.
It's a good guess. A lot of people say 110, but it is 134.9.
Holy moly! Okay.
It's up there in that it's dangerously,
Wow.
good, I think.
But I love the layers of flavor. I get
I do
like
too.
chocolate and ginger and all of this crazy.
And this is just American whiskey. One of the things that happens when we taste and we blend, we know it's right when the hairs either
Yeah.
on our arm or the back of our neck goes up and we go.
It's
"Oh,
definitely
Mine-
a
that's
physical.
hitting
right now.
that's hitting something in my brain. It's
Yeah.
just going.
Yep.
Oh, that's really good.
And we do count on that when we're blending at home. I have to walk around when I'm blending and tasting.
Yeah.
I can't sit, and I have to close my eyes and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can kind of open my brain and my sensory experience up.
Do you do a lot of like blind tastings to get the blend right too, or do you basically know what every blend is?
We do the blind tastings after we've come up with something we like.
Okay.
Then we might come up with, we'll throw that into a mix, and Mark will give me, 3 or 4 other things with it. And if I'm still pulling that out, and they imprint like children. I mean, you can pick
Sure.
it out of a room, and
Yeah.
and so, but if that's still true, that's still what we're drawn to, then that really makes us feel confident that that's where we want to be with it.
Yeah. So, how many barrels went into this blend?
8.
8. Okay. And I'm guessing the youngest was 12 then.
Yep.
Based on the age
It was
of
all 12.
It was all 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
All 12.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm almost left speechless by this one just because I'm so taken aback by how overall pleasing it is. And I mean that's such a almost a generic way of describing it, but it's so pleasant in every facet that you would hope for. The nose is really robust. The palate is just creamy and thick and oily, but I know I put creamy and oily in the same sentence, but I mean it almost has that where it's just it has almost everything you want in a whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm just
We really
Speechless.
fell in love with it. Actually, I love I feel like it's very, very different.
yeah.
I mean,
I do too.
It's hard to kind of nail down, what's going on in there.
You mentioned Stag, but I think that it's almost in a different ballpark from Stag. I mean,
Well, it's not hot, and a lot of times those big,
Right.
proofs can get hot. It just has that wonderful sweetness too.
I'm a fan of Stag, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I am
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It was in my
That's-
top 3
Yeah.
for 2018. So
Anytime I get big proof, I'm there. I'm that guy. So once we got done with doing Manhattans with Maker's Mark, and I love Maker's Mark, but I found this thing called Booker's, and it was this high proof thing, and
There
it
you
really
go.
even made a really better
Yeah.
cocktail in a lot of ways because you got the proof with the cocktail. And so I think that's what got us on the high proof.
So what are you guys drinking if you're not drinking Old Carter then? Is it Makers and Bookers or
Everything. We're always trying everything
Yeah.
we can find that's new, that's unique. We love flavor.
If we go to a bar and we haven't had something, we will buy
Oh my
it.
God, I got to try
Interesting.
that.
Yeah,
I
we
got to
try.
try that.
We're constantly trying.
We're,
And it's
we're enthusiasts too.
well, absolutely with a capital E.
it's on your business cards?
It is. Well, my former business card said professional enjoyalist, so I think that qualifies. My father gave me that title.
That's amazing.
Well, I was saying that there are so many wonderful new products on the market.
Yeah.
And so we just enjoy, we really love getting
Yeah.
out there, and whenever we're out and about, if we see anything we haven't had, we get it to try it.
Yeah,
Do you do the same in I don't know what the big package stores out in California are like, or if there are any big ones, but when you go to your stores and you see something you've never had before, do you typically pick that up as well?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Especially
we
if you
have
heard
a-
something
we have a-
about it, or we've been following them a little bit.
Right.
We do.
We
It's
love
just
the little independent stores. We've got
Yeah.
one up in Eureka in Humboldt where the hotel and restaurant.
John's Liquors and Cigars.
Hotel Carter and Restaurant 301 are located, and he's unbelievably in Northern California. He's got some wonderful barrel picks and
Yeah.
a nice
Yeah.
little
That's
selection.
awesome.
So we go out there, and then of course he's got stuff that nobody knows what it is out there. So we scoop all those up too.
Yeah, it's
Good deal.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
It is fun.
We enjoy it. So,
Do you guys have a pretty good community of whiskey drinkers in in California as well, or do you?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Well, and we get a lot of people that come out from, actually Kentucky to come see us in Napa Valley. And we have our own little home bar with everybody's stuff on it, And actually, my home bar is actually bigger. I have a hotel and restaurant I started with, like 40 some years ago. And it has a really good bourbon bar there. But the only thing is, my bourbon bar at my house is bigger. So a lot of people just go there.
Yeah, we have devoted over half of our living space to a bar.
I can't tell if that was a little bit of angst behind that, or
No,
you were
it's
pleased by it.
wonderful.
Okay.
I meditate there daily.
That kind of sounds like Dixon too, because I have had him on the show before as well, and know him through, just mutual connections and everything. And he was talking about, when he's, maybe getting stressed out by everybody at the inn, and he's like, "Well, I have to go do some work in the office," and it's basically him working on the next blend for Kentucky Owl.
Aw.
So
Tasting things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you also have a pretty good relationship with Dixon?
Love Dixon. Dixon's like a son. He's born on the exact same day as me, but just
Really?
a few years apart. Yeah, it was funny when he was drinking some wine. He was going to celebrate a birthday, and it was around my birthday a few years back. And I said, "Well, whose birthday is it, Dixon?" And he said, "Well, it's mine, actually. I'm going to pop open a bottle of Carter Cellars, And I said, "Well, when's your birthday, Dixon?" And he says, "May 21st." And I said, "Well, that's my birthday, too." It really is. And it was pretty crazy,
That's so bizarre. Kindred spirits, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's an innkeeper. I'm an innkeeper.
Exactly.
We have totally a lot in common.
And it sounds too that you all kind of have this just kind of general sensibility of family relationships too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How has family played into the way that you all have branded yourself with Old Carter?
Well, Sherri is, it's just her and me, and it's doing Old Carter, and it's really fun, I have actually two kids, but they're not involved in this brand at all. So it's something for Sherri, and so.
Were there whiskey drinkers before you all?
I don't know. What do you think, honey?
That's a great question. No. No, I was the first whiskey drinker in my family.
So what led
She was
you?
a gin drinker before we, yeah.
Oh,
No,
and nothing
no,
wrong with
actually,
that.
I wasn't. I
Oh.
started with whiskey.
Oh, that's good.
I do like gin. Gin's starting to grow on me as well.
I like
but-
gin as well.
So what led you to whiskey then instead of, what your
it-
family was drinking?
That's a good question as well. So my first job in northeastern Ohio was working for a very small photography company. It was just a husband and wife, and he was Greek, and she was from Ohio, and this great couple. And I had tons of admiration for them, and of course, he was Greek, so he was very exotic.
Exotic and excitable?
Yes, actually, he was quite passionate. But his wife, Patricia, we would go out to dinner. We became very good friends, so we did a lot of social time as well as work. And Pat would always have one Manhattan. Wherever we went out to dinner, she'd have a Manhattan, and then she'd have a glass of wine or whatever with dinner or whatever. And I was just turning 21, and so I thought, what's this mystique about this Manhattan thing?
Yeah.
And so I tasted her Manhattan and kind of fell in love with it. So then I started having one Manhattan every time I went out. No one in my family really drank whiskey. It was, I never thought
Just
about
happenstance.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just poured the 27 year.
So I'll pour
in the
mine.
You get none.
So
And then
this
like
is really interesting. You turned the bottle around for me to see the label and everything. First off, I want to point out this is a lower proof than what we
Just a little bit.
just had. Not by much. It's 124.3. This is also only bottle. There are only 72 bottles in this run, And this is 68 of 72.
Yeah.
And that's the big run.
This is our biggest run. We did some barrels, and some of them were only 14 bottles. So these are all.
Wow.
None of this has been cut again. This is all barrel strength, single barrel strength. 27-year-old, which again, we could have, you stretch it out. You could make a small batch. You could do things like
Yeah.
that, but we just felt these were so special by themselves.
Based on the nose, it's very special. There is, out of everything that we've had so far, I haven't picked this up yet, but it's a kind of a toasted marshmallow note on it, but with all of the char and everything that you get if you're like over an open flame with it.
That
And
caramelized sugar.
What I like about this, and a lot of people, when you start getting into older, bourbons, some of them, can be woody. This, to me, is just the right amount of freshness and really new wood, not old wood.
okay, I just had my first sip of it. It's clear that this is the big brother, big sister to the 12-year.
Yes.
Has everything. I kind of dug myself a grave, though, saying that the 12-year was so, everything that I wanted. But then the 27-year kicks that up to 11. And, I mean, it's again, so full-bodied. That toasted marshmallow note that I was getting on the nose is definitely present on the palate as well. The viscosity is unbelievable, too. I mean, there it is.
There it is. I think
you
it
were
works for Sherri. The hair just raised on the back of her arm, so I know she's doing good.
And
with
it's on
this.
the back of my neck, too. So, my goodness, y'all.
So I was at home washing the dishes, and Mark came into the kitchen in Calistoga, and he had a little glass in his hand, and he slid it across the counter, and he said, "Taste this." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "I'm not telling you.
just taste
it."
That's the best way to do it.
Okay. I tasted it, and I looked at him, and
Oh
I
my
said,
God.
"I don't care what this is, but we've got to have it."
Mm-hmm.
And
And it was
was
this.
the sample of this 27-year-old.
Holy moly.
We just feel very, very, very fortunate to be able to work with it.
Yeah. It doesn't drink like 124 proof, I would say. It doesn't even drink like it's 27 years. I mean, it, despite the fact that, it is that old and it has all of those extremely exquisite flavors to it. I mean, it's not so overpowering to where you couldn't maybe have another glass or, like you would have to take a whole lot of time in between each pour or each sip.
We feel like it drinks more like a cognac or an Armagnac.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It does have that viscosity of it and that mouthfeel, too. So you guys had said, too, that you didn't want to age state anything under 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting marketing tactic because so many people are almost kind of hell-bent on if they can put an age on their bottle, they're going to. Sure, we're in the age now of age statements being taken away more so than we are them being added to bottles. But, what made 12 and 27 year so special to where you felt like we have to put this out, this has to be age stated and on the market?
Well, like I said, it was over 10 years. We could
course.
say it was 10 years over, and I felt at that point we can actually do age statements. I don't think it makes much difference. I saw age statements on. We love drinking old Dusties, and we've got some beautiful Stissel Weller that's only 5 years old. It says 5 years on it, but it was put up in 1945, and
Sure.
it was bottled in 1950 or something
Yeah.
like that. And they're beautiful, But why what's a couple of years and when it's that young,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not afraid to let people know how old anything is.
Yeah, we'll tell.
I think that these two, the American whiskeys, are a little unique. We knew that we were obviously going to put the statement on the 27 year. And we got some pushback for not having age statements on our first 3 releases. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly. People
And,
want to say,
you know,
well,
I was
how
happy
old is
to
it?
I was happy to tell people, but if it came up on a thread or whatever, I wasn't involved
Yeah.
in. I wasn't involved in it. So when we knew that we were going to do the 27-year, and these are both American whiskeys, it just kind of made sense because the 12-year was over 10 years,
Yeah.
which was our first
Of course.
Yeah.
desire. You know, why not put that on there?
Yeah.
Because these two are kind of like sisters, and then the decision to release them at the same time, it just kind of made sense visually.
Sure.
And I love the way that they have both turned out. Obviously, this is barrel number 9 that we're sampling. We also released barrel number 2 and barrel number 5. Barrel 2 had 45 bottles in it, and barrel 5 had 38 bottles in it.
Oh my gosh.
So really small yields. Also very delicious. I wish we had all 3 for you to try today. I'm saying that in a selfish way. I'd like to try the 2 and the 5 again right now.
I mean, you've also said that, and you've been very gracious with the amount of pours that you've had for me on this. But look, I got to be honest though. This is easily my favorite out of.
It's
Pretty special.
It's something unique, that's for
It
sure.
absolutely is. Yeah, and I think that, you know, in a day where there aren't that many age stated products and those that are, you know, kind of are in this higher age range, I think this stands out. And, you know, for anybody listening, maybe, you know, you're not able to acquire a bottle, but if you go to a bar and you see the 27-year sitting back there, I would encourage you to try it, because regardless of, you know, your experience maybe with older barrels, older bottles of bourbon or whiskey, this is going to be a unique experience for you by far. So try it. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And we have seen it out and about. We
Good.
Saw last night
here in Lexington.
in Lexington.
A couple back bars have it.
OBC?
Yeah.
Haven't been to OBC.
Haven't
I'm
been
sure.
over
I'm
to
sure
see
he
them.
has it.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's over at Lockbox. Norma has it at Lockbox.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And they've got it in at the other. Didn't they have it in Louisville as well? The 27. At
Yeah.
Proof on Main?
Proof on Main.
Proof on Main at the other 21.
Is that their
seat.
21 seat? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Those are the only 2 we've seen.
We tried to, you know, the distributor tried to get it out into actually, you know, on premise where people could actually taste it, which we really appreciate, because, you know, we want people to try these. We
Yeah.
want them to actually drink these bottles. We don't really want them to just to put them in a case and never been, you know,
Sure.
not to taste
So
them.
just let us know where you want to meet, and we'll bring a bottle. And everybody can taste it. We're happy to pour. Happy
Coming
to
down to
pour.
Justin's.
You can see the bottle's half empty. We've
Yeah.
been out and about. But I want to add a funny thing. So we did a box for the 27-year-old, and the boxes that we decided on at the last minute, we looked at boxes that were already built, and we weren't happy with anything, of course. And so the room that you're sitting in, our builder, his name is Eddie. And
Yes,
so he
I know
built,
Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love Eddie.
He's a great guy.
And his buddy
Yeah.
Mark and the whole crew.
Mhm.
Actually, I built the fireplace with the crew. I
Did
a
you
little-
really?
I do a little stonework on the side. And
In her spare time.
Sherri, you're so cool.
just trying to stay out of jail, Terry. So, you know, Eddie has done everything in here. So he did the doors, he did the cabinets.
Yes.
He's so talented. And so we couldn't find boxes that we liked. And I said to Mark, I'm calling Eddie. Let's see if he'll build our boxes. So Eddie actually hand built all of the old Carter boxes.
Really?
And then our buddy Mr. Dangler, who has the Kentucky Double, he did the etching on the side for the old Carter.
Wow.
And so we were thrilled with the way that the boxes look.
Well,
Actually.
yeah,
So
and
there you
there's
see
one sitting right above the fireplace as well that is just beautiful. It reminds me of you know, before Booker's went to that dark wood
Yeah.
for their boxes. I just think it's
And those are some
gorgeous,
old
but-
fence posts that Eddie had laying around the place.
He's really creative.
I love.
dadgummit,
We-
Eddie.
We love that, Eddie.
To me, that is so like perfect for our brand.
Yeah.
Only 84 of those boxes in existence.
So you kind of touched on it just briefly, or kind of alluded to it, and I have to ask this because we're also at a point where people are buying product up with one of maybe three intentions: drink it, store it, or flip it. And the flipping occurs on the secondary market, which now is really prominent on Facebook. How have you guys responded to the secondary flippers on Facebook?
I don't have a problem. Like I say, after you buy a bottle
your
from
property.
it's your property. You can do anything you want with it.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy it, though. That's really what we're trying to do, is make a product. The wine, the bourbons, the whiskeys, the rye, all the things we do. We want you to really sit down and enjoy it.
We want people to have
And
experiences.
and even
Yeah.
some, when you get to a 27-year-old single barrel strength, it's a rarity, and it does cost a lot of money. But I love. I saw it the other night. The guys have groups. They go in and they buy it together, and they
Yep.
drink it together.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the best.
Don't cry.
Oh, I agree with that, though.
I do
mean,
too. I
if
agree.
you can't experience it on your own, why not?
Yeah,
Do
you
it with friends. That's
You
what it's all
gotta
about.
taste it.
Because you'll never, you taste it and you'll remember it. I'm sure you've got bottles that in your repertoire that you've tasted you'll never forget, ever.
Mhm.
And to me, that's
This
that's
one
why
of them
we
sitting
do
on the
it.
table right here.
But that's why
I'm not
we-
trying to pander either. I'm
but
being
that-
very
but
serious
that's why
about that.
everyone who's in the industry, that's what they desire. They're putting their heart and soul into something because they want people to enjoy it. They're making it to be
Yeah.
consumed and to be enjoyed with friends and all,
Absolutely.
And that's part of. It's just like creating a piece of art. And with
Yeah.
a piece of art, only a certain amount of people may stumble upon it in their lives. And these bottles are just like that. That creative spirit is right in there. And
Sherri actually kisses almost every label as she's handwriting these to
I
send
kiss
them out
them with my heart.
to send them out into the world. They're like her
actually-
children,
I
you know.
actually do. I do all the handwriting, and I put an intention into every label. I'm like, have fun, love you, see you later,
Be good.
make friends, enjoy yourself.
Make good choices.
I never
That's my
said-
favorite one, is make good choices. So to kind of wrap things up, what's the future like for Old Carter? Where do you guys want to expand in the next couple of years?
Well, we want to continue.
We're taking it one day at a time, Barry.
Yeah, one day at a time. But I think what we really want to do
No, my kind of people.
is also be able to have some more great products this coming year, you
Yeah.
know, and do like maybe 4 releases a year, like we did roughly this year.
We're working-
Actually last year at 18.
Yeah.
We want to do the same thing in 19. And we love single barrels, so we'll do some more single barrels, maybe some 14s. We got some 14s that we would love to do,
Yeah.
and some more 27s. And so,
We're working on the new rye, the rye batch
Rye,
3
and
right
yeah,
now,
Yep.
Yeah.
which
got
will
our
be out in the
samples.
next couple months. So.
All right. Well, Mark, then just text me and let me know when that's coming out. Mark and Sherri, thank you all so much for sitting down with me. It's been a real pleasure.
Perry, it's our pleasure.
Where can people find you on social media if they would like to follow up with you?
So on Instagram, we're Old Carter Whiskey Co. Mark is at Mark Carter 52.
Yeah, just
I'm at Old Sherri Carter. Facebook, Old Carter Whiskey Co. Keeping it low key.
There you go. That's all that matters.
yeah.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you all so much for being on.
It's been our pleasure.
Thank
It's
you so
so
much.
It's
fun.
been so much fun.
It's been a
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
great pleasure and an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Uh,
actually, you're our first tasting in this kind of a setting.
Yeah.
So maiden voyage for tasting.
There we go. More to come, maybe.
Recorded tasting.
It's
I
all on
love it.
record now, honey.
I love it.
It's out. It's going to be out in the public. There's no
Oh,
going
now
back.
We can't do our rye game anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Spoiler alert.
Well, if you want to follow up with us on social media, we are at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Give us a like and chat with us. We're always willing to see what's going on with you. Let's see what else. Bourbonshop.threadless.com is where you can find all of our merch and apparel. We have a free shipping promotion going on until the end of January, I believe. Patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast is where you can become a patron of the show for as little as $1 a month. You get free content. You get exclusive shows. You get to vote on what's going to be coming up in the next couple of episodes. That's going to be up there probably soon. And you also get things like advanced ticket sales to, say, our very first live show, which is happening in Louisville at the Silver Dollar. And that's going to feature women of bourbon. With a crew including Peggy No Stevens, Sarah, who has been on the show from It's Bourbon Night, and then Andrea Wilson from Michter's. And then give us a 5-star rate and review on iTunes. Tell your friends about the show. That really helps us out. And we'll see you next week. Mark and Sherri, thank you all so much again.
You just jogged my memory.
Oh, yeah?
This is how good I am. We have some merchandise.
Oh, do you?
We do.
Okay.
So there's a little shop on the website, so you can actually get Old Carter T-shirts and hats and coasters and stuff like that.
Well, there you go. Once again, thank you all so much for being on the show.
Thank
It's been
you.
a lot of fun.
We really
fun.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. I will see you next week, but until then, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.